Cultivating Compassion, a Buddhist guide to healing anger. Have you ever felt a sudden wave of anger, like a fire rising inside you, consuming your breath, tightening your chest, making your heart beat like a war drum? It happens to all of us. Sometimes it's a careless word from someone we love. Sometimes it's a stranger cutting us off in traffic. Sometimes it's the way life seems so unfair. Anger shows up in many forms. It can be loud and explosive, but it can also be quiet. A simmering resentment, a silent grudge, a cold wall between us and someone else. And yet, if we look closely, we'll see, anger is never just about the world. It's also about the wound inside. Buddhism doesn't shame anger. It doesn't say, don't get angry. Instead, it invites us to become intimate with it, to sit with it, to learn from it. Because in Buddhist thought, anger is not a monster to be slain, it's a message to be understood. So where does anger come from? The Buddha taught that anger arises from 3 root poisons: ignorance, attachment, and aversion. Ignorance is not just lack of knowledge, it's our inability to see things clearly. We don't see others as they truly are. We don't see ourselves as we truly are. We expect permanence in a world of change. We cling to our view of how things should be. Attachment is wanting things our way. We crave control, certainty, comfort. When things don't go according to plan, we react. We flare up. And aversion. That's our habit of pushing away what we don't like. We don't want to feel pain, so we blame others. We don't want to feel small, so we shout. We don't want to feel rejected, so we shut down. But here's the truth. Anger is not evil. It's human. What matters is not whether anger arises, but what we do with it. So what can we do when anger arises? The Buddhist path offers a radical but gentle response: compassion. Not the soft, sentimental kind, but fierce compassion. Clear-eyed compassion. The kind that sees suffering, even beneath the surface of someone who hurt us. Because the more we understand suffering, the harder it is to hate. Have you ever noticed that when someone you love is in pain, really in pain, you don't feel angry at them, even if they're not acting their best? That's compassion. Now imagine extending that same understanding to others. Even strangers. Even people who push your buttons. This isn't easy. But it's possible. Here's a practice I've found helpful. One that comes straight from the Buddhist tradition. It's called taking in the poison and breathing out compassion. You sit quietly. You feel your anger, but you don't run from it. Instead, you breathe in the anger, as if it were black smoke. You let it enter your heart, not to hurt you, but to be transformed. Then you breathe out kindness. You imagine sending warmth to the very person you're angry with. Not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry the fire. It's strange at first, even counterintuitive. But over time, something changes. You begin to realize, compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior. It's about refusing to let that behavior steal your peace. Let me tell you a story. There's an old Buddhist tale about a monk who was insulted by a man in the marketplace. The man shouted, cursed, threw dust at him. But the monk didn't react. Later, when asked why he stayed calm, the monk said, "If someone offers you a gift, and you do not accept it, who does it belong to?" The answer, of course, is, it still belongs to the giver. Anger is like that. When people lash out, they're handing you their suffering. You don't have to take it. But what if the anger is already inside you? Then it's time to meet yourself with compassion. Instead of judging your anger, you can ask, what am I protecting right now? What hurt am I avoiding? What expectation was broken? You might be surprised by the answers. Often, anger is grief in disguise, or fear wearing armor. It's a signal that something inside needs attention, not punishment. And here's the paradox. The more you bring kindness to your own anger, the less power it holds over you. You stop being its prisoner. One final insight from the Buddha. Hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases only by love. This is an eternal law. In today's world, so fast, so reactive, so divided, it's easy to see anger as strength. But the real strength lies in restraint, in gentleness, in wisdom. It lies in the person who, while burning with fury, chooses not to pass the flame on. And maybe that person is you. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel anger bubbling up, pause. Feel it. Honor it. Then ask, what would compassion do here? Not just for them, but for you. Because healing your anger doesn't just change your life. It ripples outward. It softens your home. It calms your relationships. It brings peace to your children. And maybe, just maybe, it helps the world heal, too. Transforming anger into compassion, a Buddhist path to inner peace. Tired of feeling anger consume you? Discover how Buddhist teachings can help you transform anger into compassion and unlock a more peaceful life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt anger take over your entire body? Your voice rising, your chest tightening, your thoughts spinning so fast you forget who you are? It could be something small, like someone cutting you off in traffic, or something deeper, a betrayal, a hurtful word from someone you trusted. And just like that, your day turns dark. Your breath feels heavy. Your heart becomes a battlefield. We've all been there. Anger is one of the most human emotions we have, but it can also be the one that poisons our relationships, clouds our judgment, and robs us of peace. So what do we do with this fire? In today's video, I want to take you into the heart of Buddhist wisdom, a path that doesn't suppress anger, but transforms it. A path that doesn't pretend you're not hurting, but shows you how to heal without harming yourself or others. Let's begin. 1. The nature of anger. What are we really feeling? Anger is often misunderstood. We think it's just an emotional reaction to being wronged. But in the Buddhist view, anger is usually a mask, covering something much more vulnerable beneath it. Ask yourself, what's under my anger right now? Is it fear? Disappointment? Shame? Powerlessness? Sometimes, anger is grief in disguise. Sometimes, it's the cry of our ego, desperate not to feel small. And sometimes, it's just exhaustion. From being ignored. From holding it all in. Buddhism teaches us not to fight our anger, not to deny it, but to sit with it. To listen to it. Because emotions, when listened to deeply, always lead us back to something we need to heal. 2. The 3 poisons. Why we get stuck in anger. According to Buddhist philosophy, there are 3 root poisons in the human mind. Ignorance, attachment, and aversion. These 3 fuels keep anger burning long after the fire should have gone out. Ignorance is not stupidity. It's the inability to see clearly. We misperceive others. We project. We assume. We believe the world should revolve around our expectations, and when it doesn't, we erupt. Attachment is our craving for things to go our way. We want love without vulnerability, respect without effort, peace without discomfort. And when life, inevitably, doesn't give us what we want, we lash out. Aversion is our instinct to push away anything unpleasant. We don't want to feel the sting of rejection, so we cover it with blame. We don't want to feel guilt, so we explode outward instead of looking inward. These poisons live in all of us, but recognizing them is the first step to freedom. 3. Why compassion is the antidote. So, what can we do? What truly softens anger, what neutralizes its grip, is not logic. It's not even self-control. It's compassion. Now, let's be clear. Compassion is not about letting people walk all over you. It's not about pretending you won't hurt. It's not weakness. True compassion is strength. It's the strength to look at another human being, even someone who's hurt you, and recognize you are suffering too. Because here's the radical truth. Angry people are suffering people. No one lashes out from a peaceful place. Even if their behavior is cruel, it comes from a place of confusion, fear, or pain. Compassion doesn't mean staying in harm's way, but it does mean choosing not to multiply suffering. It means asking, what would it feel like to stop carrying this fire? 4. A practice you can try, breathing through the fire. Here's a simple Buddhist-inspired practice that can transform anger into compassion. It's called Tunglen, a Tibetan meditation practice that means giving and receiving. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. As you inhale, imagine breathing in your own anger, the heat, the tightness, the story. Don't push it away. Take it in, bravely. Then, as you exhale, imagine breathing out peace, kindness, softness. Do this not to fix others, but to free yourself. It's okay if it feels strange at first, but with practice, this breathing becomes a bridge from rage to release. You begin to realize you don't have to be ruled by your emotions. You can walk with them. You can teach them how to love. 5. A story that still stays with me. Let me share a story, a true one. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Zen master, once told of a time when a man yelled at him in a crowd, called him names, accused him falsely, and Thich Nhat Hanh simply stood still, looked into the man's eyes, and softly bowed. When asked why he didn't defend himself, he said, "Because I could see his suffering more clearly than his anger." That's compassion. And maybe that's the highest wisdom we can hope to reach, not to always win, not to always protect our pride, but to stay rooted in love even in the storm. 6. Healing ourselves through forgiveness. Let's not forget, sometimes the anger we hold is toward ourselves. Maybe you didn't speak up when you should have. Maybe you hurt someone you love. Maybe you've carried shame for years. In these moments, compassion must turn inward. Self-forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about saying, yes, I've been imperfect, but I am still worthy of peace. The Buddha never said we must be flawless. He said we must be awake. And waking up means recognizing healing is a choice, one we can make today and again tomorrow. 7. What if the world needs more gentle people? We often admire people who are tough, assertive, unshakable. But what if the true revolution is gentleness? What if being the calm in the chaos is the real power? Think about the last time someone met your anger with patience. Didn't it stop you in your tracks? Didn't it melt something inside you? Maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't need more people shouting. Maybe it needs more people listening, more people breathing, more people choosing love, even when it's hard. Final words, a question for you. So here's my question. What would happen if just for today, you let go of one piece of anger you've been carrying? Just one. Would your breath feel lighter? Would your home feel more peaceful? Would your heart feel a little more free? This is not a call to be perfect. It's a call to be compassionate. And in the Buddhist path, that's more than enough. Because when you soften your anger, you don't just change your day. You change the energy you bring into the world. And that ripple is everything. Title: Cultivating Compassion, a Buddhist Guide to Healing Anger. Hook: spoken slowly with emphasis. Anger is a powerful emotion that can leave you feeling drained and disconnected. This video explores practical Buddhist techniques to overcome anger and cultivate compassion, leading to a more fulfilling life. Script: approximate 2,000 words. Have you ever noticed how anger doesn't just show up, it erupts? One small spark, a rude comment, a memory from the past, someone cutting you off in traffic, and suddenly you're not yourself anymore. Your chest tightens. Your voice rises. Your thoughts spiral. You say things you don't mean. Or worse, you shut down, silently boiling, emotionally exhausted. And afterward, you're left wondering, why did that affect me so much? Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions in the human experience. We often treat it like a monster we need to suppress or a fire we must let burn. But what if it's neither? What if, instead of resisting or indulging in anger, we understood it? According to Buddhist wisdom, anger isn't the enemy. It's a messenger, revealing the places inside us that are still hurting, still grasping, still clinging to the illusion of control. Let's take a step back. Imagine someone insults you. In that split second, anger flares up. But underneath that anger, what really happened? Perhaps your ego felt threatened. Perhaps a wound from your past was touched. A moment you were not heard, not seen, not respected. That moment of insult didn't create the anger. It triggered it. The seed was already there. The Buddha taught that our suffering doesn't come from the external world, but from how we relate to it. Anger is no exception. In the Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddha's teachings, there's a verse that says, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." Let's pause here. If anger cannot be healed by more anger, then what does heal it? The answer, which is simple but not easy, is compassion. Compassion is not softness. It's not weakness. It's not letting people walk all over you. Compassion, in the Buddhist sense, is the brave act of looking deeply. It's recognizing that every person, including ourselves, acts out of their own suffering, their own ignorance, their own fear. This doesn't mean excusing harm, but it does mean seeking to understand it. Here's an example. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Vietnamese Zen master, once shared a story about how he dealt with anger. He said that when anger arises, he treats it like a crying baby. You don't scream at a crying baby. You hold it. You soothe it. You breathe with it. You ask, "What do you need? What are you trying to tell me?" What if we treated our own anger with that kind of tenderness? What if, instead of pushing it away or letting it consume us, we simply sat with it? Try this. The next time anger arises, don't react immediately. Don't justify it. Don't judge it. Just pause. Feel it in your body. Notice its temperature, its tightness. And then, like a curious friend, ask, what are you protecting? What pain are you pointing to? You may be surprised by what you hear. Often, anger is protecting something soft. A boundary crossed. A value violated. A fear awakened. And in recognizing this, we open the door to healing. But let's be honest, that pause is not always easy. Buddhist practice offers tools to help us create that space. Mindfulness meditation, for example, is a powerful way to develop awareness of our emotions without getting lost in them. By sitting quietly, observing the breath, and watching thoughts arise and pass, we begin to realize that anger, like everything else, is impermanent. It doesn't define us. It comes. It goes. We are not our anger. We are the awareness behind it. Another practice is called metta bhavana, or loving-kindness meditation. In it, we silently repeat phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering." And yes, this includes the person we are angry at. At first, this feels impossible. Why would I wish peace for someone who hurt me? But the practice is not for them. It's for us. When we hold on to anger, we carry the poison. Metta helps us release it. Not by pretending the wound didn't happen, but by refusing to let it harden our heart. Because here's the truth. The more we carry unprocessed anger, the more it begins to shape our life. It clouds our judgment. It damages relationships. It robs us of joy. But when we choose compassion, we soften. We see clearly. We live more fully. Here's something I've learned personally. Anger often appears when I'm exhausted. When I've been holding too much. When I feel unheard or unseen. But when I practice mindfulness, when I take space to reflect, I begin to see the thread beneath the fire. And I can respond, not just react. And slowly, the moments of reactivity become moments of clarity. And in those moments, compassion becomes not just a concept, but a living, breathing way of being. So let me ask you, what would it feel like to hold your anger with kindness instead of shame? What would your life look like if you let go of the stories that fuel your resentment? What kind of relationships could you rebuild if you responded from compassion rather than hurt? The Buddha never promised a life without difficult emotions, but he did promise a path through them. That path begins with understanding. It continues with mindfulness, and it blossoms into compassion. Not overnight, not all at once, but breath by breath, moment by moment, we return to the truth. That anger is not who we are. Compassion is. And when we live from that truth, healing begins. Closing line, with gentle music. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it. Because in a world filled with noise and conflict, compassion is a revolution. And it begins with you. The Healing Path. How Buddhist wisdom transforms anger into compassion. Hook. Did you know that the path to healing anger lies within your own heart? Explore the Buddhist wisdom that can guide you toward compassion and inner peace. Have you ever felt anger take over your whole being? Your breath quickens, your body tenses, and suddenly, it's like you're no longer yourself? We've all been there. Whether it's someone cutting you off in traffic, a harsh word from a loved one, or the frustration of being unheard at work, anger shows up, sometimes as a wildfire, sometimes as a slow burn. But no matter how it manifests, one thing is certain. It leaves us feeling drained, disconnected, and often ashamed. But what if I told you that within that very fire of anger lies the seed of something transformative? Not just calm, not just control, but compassion. And that the path to this transformation isn't outside of you, it's within. Today, we explore the Buddhist teachings that guide us not to suppress anger, not to fear it, but to understand it, and ultimately, to heal through it. Let's begin. Part 1. The true nature of anger. Anger is often misunderstood. We treat it like an enemy, something to eliminate or ignore. But in Buddhism, anger isn't labeled as inherently evil or wrong. Instead, it's seen as a mental affliction, a signpost that something within us needs attention, not punishment. Think of anger like a fever. It's not the disease, it's a symptom. And if we simply try to silence it, we miss the message it's trying to deliver. Anger, at its core, arises from pain, a sense of injustice, betrayal, unmet needs, or wounded pride. It's the armor we wear when we feel vulnerable, the loud voice we use when we feel unseen. So instead of asking, how do I get rid of this anger? What if we asked, what is this anger trying to show me? This shift alone, seeing anger not as the enemy, but as a teacher, changes everything. Part 2. The Buddhist Perspective. Buddhism offers a profound perspective on emotions like anger. The Buddha taught that all suffering comes from attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Anger arises from aversion, our resistance to what is. Someone insults us, we resist that reality, and anger flares. A plan goes wrong, we resist impermanence, and frustration grows. In that moment, we believe that if only things were different, we would be happy. But Buddhism gently challenges this. It reminds us, peace does not come from controlling external circumstances. Peace comes from cultivating clarity and compassion within. This doesn't mean becoming passive or letting others walk over you. In fact, Buddhist compassion is strong, grounded, and wise. It says, I see clearly. I respond wisely. I do not let your actions poison my heart. Part 3. Mindfulness, the first key. So how do we begin this transformation? The first key is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of observing our inner world without judgment. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. You can finally see what's been lurking in the shadows. When anger arises, mindfulness doesn't say, stop being angry. It says, anger is here. Let me sit with it. And this simple act, of noticing without reacting, is revolutionary. Try this the next time anger visits. Before lashing out or shutting down, pause. Breathe. Feel the sensations in your body. Name what you feel. Tight chest. Heat in my face. Racing thoughts. By doing this, you create space, and in that space, compassion can enter. Part 4. Compassion for yourself. One of the most overlooked aspects of healing anger is self-compassion. We often judge ourselves for being angry. We think, I should be better than this. I should be more spiritual, more patient. But that judgment adds another layer of suffering. Instead, can you say to yourself, of course I'm angry. I'm human. I'm hurt. I want to feel safe. This isn't self-indulgence. This is emotional maturity. When we learn to treat our own pain with kindness, we become less reactive, more understanding. And slowly, the fire of anger becomes the warmth of empathy. Part 5. Seeing the other. Now, what about the person who caused your anger? This is where Buddhist compassion stretches us the most. The Buddha taught that those who hurt others are often hurting deeply themselves. Their actions may be unskillful, even harmful, but they, too, are caught in delusion and suffering. Does that excuse their behavior? No. Does it mean we stay silent or allow abuse? Absolutely not. But it invites us to see deeper, to ask, what pain might they be carrying? And this perspective allows us to respond, not with vengeance, but with clarity and boundaries rooted in wisdom. Remember, forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of anger. Part 6. The Power of Loving Kindness. One of the most powerful Buddhist tools for transforming anger is the Metta Bhavana meditation, also known as the loving kindness practice. It begins simply, may I be happy. May I be safe. May I be free from suffering. And then, you expand that wish outward. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. Eventually, even to the person who made you angry. At first, this feels impossible. Why should I wish good for someone who hurt me? But here's the paradox. The more love you send, the more peace you feel. Not because they change, but because you change. You reclaim your heart. You choose who you want to be. Part 7. Real life example. Let me share a real story. A woman named Sarah, a teacher in California, once told me about a colleague who constantly undermined her. Every meeting felt like a battlefield. For months, she carried this silent rage. Then she began practicing mindfulness and loving kindness, just 5 minutes a day. She still set boundaries, still addressed issues professionally, but her inner landscape began to shift. One day, the colleague made another passive-aggressive comment. But instead of reacting, Sarah simply smiled and said, "You must be under a lot of pressure. I hope your day gets easier." And the room went quiet. That moment wasn't weakness. It was freedom. Part 8. The ongoing practice. Healing anger isn't a one-time fix. It's a lifelong practice. There will be setbacks, days when the fire feels too strong. But every moment offers a new choice: react or reflect, blame or breathe, attack or understand. As the Buddha said, hatred does not cease by hatred. It ceases by love. This is an eternal law. You don't have to be a monk or meditate in the mountains. You just need willingness, curiosity, and the courage to turn inward. Part 9. Why it matters. Think about the world we live in today. So many are angry, at politics, at strangers online, at their own families. And underneath all of it is pain. If even one of us chooses to heal, to respond with compassion instead of rage, we break a cycle. We create ripples. You don't just heal yourself. You become a source of healing for others. And that might be the most radical act of love you can offer this world. Understanding anger's roots. Why we hurt when we are angry. Have you ever felt that heat rising in your chest? Out of nowhere? A driver cuts you off. A friend forgets something important. A stranger says something that rubs you the wrong way. And suddenly, boom, anger. But have you ever stopped and asked, where did that come from? Not the trigger, not the person, but the root. The place inside you where it actually began. You see, anger doesn't appear out of thin air. It's not random. It has roots, deep ones. And if we want to find peace, we need to stop pulling the leaves and start digging into the soil. Today, we explore where anger really comes from, through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, human emotion, and everyday life. In Buddhism, there's a powerful concept called the 3 poisons. These are the emotional toxins that cloud our mind and distort our view of the world. They are greed, our craving, our constant wanting; hatred, our aversion, our pushing away; delusion, our confusion, our not seeing clearly. And guess what? Anger is often the child of these 3. Let's start with greed. You might be thinking, what does wanting have to do with anger? Well, a lot. Think about it. You want respect. You want recognition. You want control. And when you don't get it, what happens? You get frustrated. You lash out. You stew in silence. That's anger, born from craving unmet expectations. Then there's hatred, the obvious one. The one we associate with enemies, injustices, wrongs. But hatred doesn't always show up with fists and shouting. Sometimes it's quiet. A cold shoulder. A closed heart. A refusal to forgive. Hatred fuels the fire of anger, even when we smile through clenched teeth. And the most sneaky one? Delusion. The stories we tell ourselves. They're always like that. I never get a break. I'm right, and they're wrong. These distorted thoughts become our truth, and from that truth, we fight. When you mix all 3, wanting, resisting, and misunderstanding, you create the perfect storm. I remember a day I came home after a rough week. Work stress, lack of sleep, a long list of shoulds weighing on me. My partner said something small, but I snapped. Words came out sharper than I intended. Silence followed. Then distance. Later, I sat alone, asking myself, why did I get so angry? And slowly, I unraveled it. I wasn't mad at them. I was mad at my exhaustion, at my own unworthiness, at my fear that I wasn't doing enough. That moment wasn't about what was said. It was about the pressure I had buried under my smile. Can you relate? That's the thing about anger. It rarely tells the truth on the surface. It wears masks. Society doesn't make it easy, either. We live in a world that rewards urgency, competition, comparison. We are told to always push for more success, more beauty, more likes, more winning. But underneath that pressure, there's stress. And where there's stress, there's anger waiting to erupt. You see it in relationships, when we expect someone to complete us, and they don't. You see it at work, when we feel unseen, undervalued, or misunderstood. You even see it in strangers, when someone gets the last parking spot, and your blood boils. What if we paused and asked, what is this really about? Because often, it's not about the thing. It's about the wound underneath it. Anger is like a symptom, like a fever. It tells us something's off, but it's not the disease itself. If we only treat the fever, we miss the infection beneath. And that infection, often, it's pain. Sometimes it's the pain of being overlooked. Sometimes, the pain of childhood wounds. Sometimes, it's simply the pain of being human, longing for connection, feeling alone in a crowded room. So many of us were never taught how to process that pain. We were told to be strong, get over it, don't be dramatic. So we buried it. And what's buried doesn't disappear, it festers. And eventually, it becomes anger. This is a powerful question, because often, anger is a protector. It tries to guard our soft spots, our vulnerability. When you feel disrespected and lash out, maybe it's your dignity trying to protect itself. When you yell at a loved one for being late, maybe it's your inner child fearing abandonment. When you rage at injustice, maybe it's your deep care for others finally breaking through. Not all anger is bad. In fact, righteous anger can be a force for change. But the key is, are we conscious of it? Or are we being driven by it? In Buddhist practice, mindfulness teaches us to observe anger, not suppress it, not obey it. To simply say, hello, anger. I see you. Can you try that? The next time you feel the rise, pause, breathe, ask, what's beneath this? What am I not seeing clearly? You might be surprised by the answer. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's a longing to be loved, just as you are. We don't have to live trapped in cycles of reactivity. We can choose understanding over assumption, compassion over blame. Anger isn't a failure, it's a signpost. And when we learn to read it with gentle eyes, it can become a teacher. What has anger tried to teach you lately? And more importantly, are you ready to listen? Remember, healing doesn't mean you never get angry again. It means your anger no longer controls you. It means you can hold space for it and choose not to let it harden your heart. We all have fire inside, but when we learn to sit with it, breathe through it, and understand where it comes from, our fire becomes light, not destruction. You are not your anger. You are the awareness behind it. And that awareness is already whole. The power of compassion. How loving without conditions heals our deepest wounds. What if I told you that the greatest force for healing your anger, your pain, even your fear, isn't power or control? It's compassion. Not sympathy. Not guilt. Not even forgiveness, though that comes later. But true compassion. That quiet, radiant strength that looks at pain and says, I see you, and I still choose love. We live in a world that's often reactive, impatient, easily offended. And when we are hurt, the most natural instinct is to strike back or shut down. But what if there's another way? Today, let's take a slow, honest look at what compassion really is, why it's more powerful than we think, and how it might be the missing piece to healing not just anger, but the deepest parts of ourselves. In Buddhism, compassion is more than a moral virtue. It's a transformative power, a path of awakening. The word for compassion in Pali is karu. It means a quivering of the heart, a natural, instinctive response to suffering. It's not pity. It's not fixing. It's not about feeling superior or responsible. It's about being with suffering, fully, gently, without turning away. And here's something profound. In Buddhist teaching, compassion isn't limited to others. It includes you, too. Yes, you. With your flaws, regrets, and broken places. Because compassion isn't about who deserves it. It's about recognizing that we all suffer. And in that shared humanity, we are already connected. Now, let's talk about anger. Anger often masks pain. It shows up when we feel disrespected, dismissed, or disconnected. And while it's natural, when left unchecked, anger becomes a wall. It isolates us from others and from ourselves. Here's the thing most people never realize. Anger is afraid. Afraid of being weak. afraid of being hurt again, afraid of not mattering. And compassion. Compassion looks that fear in the eye and says, "You're safe with me." It melts the armor. It softens the edges. Not because we pretend everything's okay, but because we remember, even the one who hurt us is hurting too. I remember once standing in a long grocery line. Everyone was tired. It was late. A man cut in front of me. No apology, no eye contact. I felt the heat rise instantly. Anger, judgment, that voice in my head. Who does he think he is? But then something made me pause. I looked closer. He wasn't smug. He looked exhausted, like someone who had just received bad news. I didn't say anything, but I didn't need to, because in that small shift, from reacting to seeing, something softened in me. That's the power of compassion. It doesn't require an explanation. It simply says, maybe there's more to this moment than I understand. We often think compassion is this grand, saintly thing, but really, it lives in the smallest moments. A deep breath instead of a harsh word. A listening ear instead of a judgment. An act of patience when someone else is unraveling. And here's something beautiful. The more you practice compassion outwardly, the more it begins to grow inwardly. Because here's the secret. Most of us aren't cruel to others, but we are merciless to ourselves. That inner critic, the voice that says you're not enough, the way we replay every mistake, every failure, we speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to a friend. Self-compassion means turning toward your own pain, not to wallow, but to witness. To say, yes, I'm messed up, but I am learning. Yes, I'm hurting, but I am still whole. Yes, I reacted, but I am human, and I can try again. This isn't about making excuses. It's about breaking the cycle of shame that fuels anger. Because when we hold ourselves with compassion, we don't need to defend or attack. We can take responsibility without self-hatred. We can grow without fear. Here's a powerful thought. Compassion is not the opposite of strength. It is strength. It takes strength to be kind in the face of cruelty, to stay open when it's easier to shut down, to forgive, not because someone earned it, but because you refuse to carry the poison. We often say, hurt people. But healed people, they heal others. And the bridge between those two states is compassion. In Buddhist thought, compassion isn't just a feeling. It's a practice. We cultivate it the way we train a muscle, by choosing again and again to stay present with pain, by wishing freedom from suffering for all beings, starting with the ones hardest to love. And over time, something shifts. We begin to see differently, not just people's behavior, but their humanity. The loud man at work? He's overwhelmed. The cold partner? She's scared to be vulnerable. Even the one who wronged you deeply was probably carrying pain they never learned to process. This isn't about justifying harm. It's about seeing clearly. Compassion clears the fog of hatred. And in that clarity, healing begins. Take a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly seen? Who in your life could use a little more grace? What would it look like to offer that grace to yourself? These aren't easy questions, but they matter, because every act of compassion creates a ripple, one that touches lives in ways you may never fully see. You don't have to change the world in one day. You don't have to be perfect to be kind. You just have to begin, with one breath, one choice, one moment. Compassion isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you practice into being. And every time you choose it, even when it's hard, you're rewriting the story of this world. From one of division, to one of healing. From one of fear, to one of deep, enduring love. Practical techniques for cultivating compassion. Sometimes, the hardest battle isn't with the world, it's within ourselves. You may already know what it feels like when anger flares up. Your chest tightens, your voice sharpens, and your heart closes off. It's as if a storm has moved in, and you're no longer in control of the winds. But what if I told you, there's a way to calm that storm? Not by suppressing it. Not by pretending everything's fine. But by learning to meet it with something far more powerful, compassion. In this part of our journey, I want to share with you not just theories, but practical tools, real techniques you can use to bring more compassion into your daily life. Tools rooted in mindfulness, in Buddhist wisdom, and in the quiet science of self-awareness. Because here's the truth: anger is not the enemy. It's a messenger. And compassion is the language that lets us truly hear what it's trying to say. Mindfulness, the first step toward transformation. Let's begin with the foundation: mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just about sitting cross-legged and breathing deeply, although that's a part of it. It's about noticing, really noticing, what is happening inside you without immediately reacting. Have you ever caught yourself snapping at someone, only to realize later that it wasn't really about them? Maybe it was a stressful morning, or unresolved hurt from years ago, bubbling beneath the surface. Anger rarely appears without a deeper root. Practicing mindfulness teaches us to pause. And in that pause, there's power. You can try this right now. Close your eyes, if you're somewhere safe. Take one slow, deep breath. Inhale gently through your nose. Let your belly rise. Now exhale through your mouth. Slow, steady. Notice what you feel. Maybe it's tension in your shoulders. Maybe it's sadness beneath the frustration. Just observe. No judgment. No fixing. Just awareness. This simple breath is your doorway back to the present, and from there, you can begin to understand your anger rather than be consumed by it. Meditation. Meeting yourself with kindness. From mindfulness comes meditation. But I don't mean it in the abstract or mystical sense. Meditation is simply a practice of meeting yourself, again and again, with kindness. One of the most transformative practices in Buddhist tradition is called metta bhavana, or loving kindness meditation. Here's how it works, and you can do this at home, anytime you have 5 to 10 quiet minutes. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Begin by focusing on yourself. Silently repeat phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be free from suffering." Let the words settle in your heart, not as a wish, but as a recognition of your own worthiness. Then, bring to mind someone you love deeply. Repeat the same phrases for them. May you be happy. May you be safe. Next, extend the practice to someone neutral, a coworker, a neighbor. Now, here's the challenge. Bring to mind someone who has hurt or angered you. You don't have to condone their actions, but can you still wish them peace? Finally, extend loving kindness to all beings everywhere. At first, it may feel forced, awkward, even uncomfortable. That's okay. Compassion, like any muscle, takes time to grow strong. Triggers. Naming the fire before it burns. Another powerful technique is identifying your triggers, the specific situations, words, or patterns that ignite your anger. Ask yourself, what moments make you feel invisible, powerless, disrespected? Keep a journal for a week, noting when anger arises, what time, what setting, what emotions were present. Often, we discover that our anger follows patterns, and those patterns are rooted in wounds that haven't been fully acknowledged. When we name our triggers, we are no longer blindly reacting. We are responding with awareness. That's compassion, too. Compassion for the child inside us who didn't feel heard. Compassion for the adult now trying to protect that child. Self-compassion, the ground we stand on. Here's something we often forget. We can't offer true compassion to others if we refuse to offer it to ourselves. How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? When you lash out in anger? Is it with shame or with understanding? Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron once said, "Compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves." That means allowing room for imperfection. It means recognizing that healing is not linear, and that even our worst moments are part of the human experience. You can try this practice. Place a hand over your heart when you're upset, and simply say to yourself, "This is hard. I'm doing the best I can." Let it be gentle. Let it be enough. Forgiveness. Letting go of the story. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean excusing harm. What it does mean is loosening the grip of the story you've been repeating, the one that says, "They shouldn't have done that," or "I'll never get past this." Those stories may be true, but clinging to them keeps you stuck in a loop of pain. Forgiveness, in the Buddhist sense, is an act of compassion, not just for others, but for your own peace of mind. Try this reflection. What burden am I carrying that is no longer serving me? Sometimes, the person we most need to forgive is ourselves. Compassion is a practice, not a personality. You might think, "But I'm just not a naturally compassionate person." I get irritated easily. I hold grudges. That's okay. Compassion is not a trait you're born with. It's a skill, one that grows with practice, like learning to play an instrument or build a garden. Each time you choose patience over rage, listening over judging, curiosity over control, you are practicing compassion. And like anything we practice consistently, it begins to shape who we are. It rewires your brain. Literally. Neuroscience shows that compassion practices can reduce stress, increase empathy, and even improve heart health. So no, it's not just being nice. It's a profound act of inner strength. A story to carry with you. Let me share a short story that changed the way I see compassion. A monk once told his student, imagine you're holding a cup of hot tea. Someone bumps into you, and you spill it. Why did the tea spill? The student replied, because someone bumped into me. No, said the monk. The tea spilled because that's what was in your cup. If it were water, water would spill. If it were vinegar, vinegar would spill. When life bumps you, what's inside you comes out. So ask yourself, what's in your cup? If you fill it with bitterness, that's what will spill when the world pushes you. But if you fill it, slowly, patiently, with compassion, then even in chaos, what spills is understanding. Final thoughts. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. You won't always remember to breathe. You'll still get angry sometimes. But with each moment of mindfulness, each act of self-kindness, each breath of compassion, you're changing. And you're giving others permission to change, too. So the next time anger rises, ask, what would compassion do right now? And then, try that. Just once. That's where the healing begins. Applying compassion in daily life, a Buddhist path to peace in a chaotic world. Have you ever noticed how quickly we react when someone offends us? A harsh word, a dismissive glance, a driver cutting us off. Our instinct is to tighten up, defend ourselves, snap back. It's almost as if we are wired to protect our boundaries at all costs. But what if, in that very moment, we paused? What if, instead of reacting from anger, we responded with compassion? I know, it sounds unrealistic, maybe even naive, but stick with me for a moment, because this idea, it's not about letting people walk over us. It's about reclaiming our own peace in a world that thrives on division. Why compassion is not just a virtue, it's a superpower. Compassion, in Buddhist teachings, is more than just being kind. It's a deep, intuitive understanding that everyone is struggling with something. It's not pity. It's not weakness. It's the courageous act of saying, I choose to meet this moment with openness, not resistance. The Buddha once said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. Think about that. In today's polarized world, with stress, anxiety, and anger on the rise, compassion isn't some distant spiritual concept. It's a daily decision, a way of walking through life without adding fuel to the fire. But how do we do that? Practically. Let me share a story that changed the way I think about this. Open book a story from the subway. A few years ago, I was riding a crowded subway train in New York. Everyone was tired. You could feel the tension in the air. Suddenly, a man and his 2 kids got on. The kids were loud, running up and down the aisle, knocking into people, shouting. The man just sat there, silent, staring out the window. You could see the frustration building around him. People were glaring. Someone muttered under their breath. I was about to say something when the woman next to me leaned over and asked gently, "Excuse me, sir, are you all right?" The man blinked, as if coming back into his body. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We just came from the hospital. Their mother died an hour ago. I don't know what to do." Silence fell across the train. No one was angry anymore. No one needed to be. Because suddenly, we understood. Electric light bulb, what changed? The kids didn't change. The man didn't change. But our perception did. Compassion is that shift. It's the moment when judgment melts into understanding. It's seeing the human behind the behavior. That story stays with me, not because it was dramatic, but because it showed me how easy it is to forget each other's pain. And it made me wonder, how often do I judge a moment before I truly understand it? Counterclockwise arrows bringing this into everyday life. Of course, not every situation is as extreme as that. But think of your own life. That coworker who snaps at you during a meeting. The stranger who cuts in line. The friend who suddenly pulls away without explanation. In those moments, our default is to assume the worst. But what if, instead of reacting, we inquired? Instead of closing off, we opened? Here's a gentle practice I've started using, and it's changed everything. # the 3-second compassion pause. When something triggers me, I take a breath and silently ask, what might this person be going through right now? Not always with an answer, just with space. And even if the answer doesn't come, that pause, it softens me. It creates a tiny gap between stimulus and response. A sacred moment where I get to choose who I want to be. That's the power of compassion. It's not about changing others. It's about not letting them change you into someone you're not. Hammer and wrench # practical tools to respond to anger compassionately. Let's talk practical. Here are 3 tools you can use today, especially in moments of tension. 1. Name the emotion, not the enemy. Instead of saying, "You're making me angry," try, "I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now." This shifts the energy from blame to ownership and opens a doorway for connection. 2. Breathe before you speak. 1 breath. That's all it takes to shift your nervous system out of fight or flight. Try this. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale slowly for 6. Suddenly, you're not reacting, you're responding. 3. See the child within. This one is subtle but profound. Whenever someone is acting out, try to imagine them as a small child. Not to belittle them, but to humanize them. Often, the wounds people carry go back decades. Compassion doesn't ignore the behavior, but it does refuse to hate the person. Seedling real-life transformations through compassion. I once met a woman named Evelyn at a retreat. She'd spent years resenting her father, a man who had emotionally abandoned her. Her anger had become her identity. One evening, she shared that she finally sat down, looked at a photo of him, and whispered, "I don't know what hurt you, but I no longer want to carry your pain in my heart." That was her moment of compassion. Not for him, but for herself. Compassion isn't always about making peace with others. Sometimes it's about releasing ourselves from the grip of anger we've held for too long. Cyclone compassion is a circle. What you give, returns. Here's something beautiful. The more compassion we offer others, the more it echoes back to us. When you speak kindly in a moment of chaos, when you choose to listen rather than lash out, when you offer grace where you could give judgment, you're not just healing that moment. You're changing the tone of your entire life. Because compassion has a frequency, and it attracts peace like a magnet. Candle # a quiet challenge for you. So here's a simple challenge. Tomorrow, or even today, look for one moment to practice compassion. Maybe someone's rude to you in traffic. Maybe your partner forgets something important. Maybe your child throws a tantrum for no reason. In that moment, before your mouth moves, breathe and silently ask, what's the most loving response I can give right now? That tiny shift, repeated often, will change you. And in changing you, it will begin to change the world around you. Cherry blossom, a final reflection. Life is hard. People are messy. Emotions are real. But if there's one thing the Buddha's path reminds us, it's this. Compassion is always an option. Not because the world is easy, but because we deserve peace, even when the world is not. So maybe today, you choose to soften instead of harden, to listen instead of react, to understand instead of assume. And maybe, just maybe, in doing so, you'll discover that compassion was never about others. It was always a gift you gave yourself. Thank you for being here, and for walking this path with intention. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who might need a gentle reminder today. Until next time, stay kind, stay open, and remember, your compassion is the medicine this world so deeply needs.